I co-chair the Women in Security SIG for ISSA, and I'm on the local board for ISSA. So I also have been working in the industry a long, long time. So let's just start quickly, and we'll do it brief. It won't be a big background so we can get through. And give your name, your title, for what you do, and your number of years in the field. Let's do that. And Gail? No. Gail, can I start with you?
Yeah, but I'm not telling you how long.
You can keep it so you can tell. You can tell the name of where you work instead if you want to.
So I work for Axon Enterprises. We make tasers and body cameras. I have been in IT approximately 2 decades. I'll leave it at that. I am a compliance, governance, and risk person, always have been. Started out as a regular business process auditor, and shifted over to IT audit and have been there ever since. I worked with Ford, I worked with Ernst & Young, on semiconductor, and now Axon. So I've always worked for public companies.
These mics are live, everyone. Don't play with them.
Okay, my name is Tina Slankus. I am a managing director at Accenture. I've been working in this field since the 90s, so it's in cybersecurity. So glad to be here. Variety of background, and we'll get more into that as we get to the questions.
Thank you.
I'm Sharice, and I am currently a project consultant with the Department of Economic Security. Previously, I was CIO of the Judicial Branch in Maricopa, and have also had CIO roles at Iron Mountain and at IO Data Centers.
Good afternoon. My name is Madhuri Jha. I'm an IT director at Honeywell, and over 2 decades in IT, and I have worn several hats, including project program management, technology strategy, IT service delivery, and IT governance. Really happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with something, a real softball here. So a lot of us get asked to do mentoring, especially since we're trying to get more people in the field. So I would like to ask you ladies, what is mentorship and what is advocacy, and how do they help empower women in the field, but really anyone? And you don't all 4 have to answer it. You can if it's add-on, but yeah.
So I'll use hers.
She has 3 mics.
And none of them work. What I do for mentoring is I work with Arizona State University's CHOPS program. Each semester, we meet with a group of students who are interested in obtaining a cybersecurity career. And I also help to do mock interviews with that class. We do discussions about enterprise governance, risk, and compliance. We also have a technical side to it, as well as we do resume reviews. I don't know if any of you were at Cactus Con a couple of weeks ago in the Career Village. I was going to wear my shirt, but I didn't want to offend anyone. In the Career Village. So I also help other organizations do resume reviews, give guidance and advice and advocacy. I do a lot of that for students in, I would say, grade school. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Basha High School's program for computer science. So I have spoken to that class on a regular basis, and I bring in speakers, whether it's Ed Vasco from University of Colorado, or you've got Kim Jones from Intuit, and I bring people in to speak to the classes as well. Advocacy is very important in this very small community here in Phoenix. There's a lot of STEM programs, however, they don't have a lot of support from industry participants, and I'm talking you guys and me. So I try to, sprinkle my time around these different groups because it's really important to give them some expectation of what's to come, if that's the path they want to take.
I'm going to give a really quick answer. I'm going to tell you how I benefited from mentoring and allyship. So I worked at Choice for about 20 years, and the CIO I worked with told me that I needed to leave because I had outgrown Choice. He said, you can't have this same career at this place. You have to go outside and do something else. So there were a couple opportunities in my career where I didn't know what to do. When I was at IO, I was asked to be vice president and chief of staff. And so I called Todd and I said, I don't know if I can do this. And he was like, why? And I gave him some answers and he's like, all your answers suck. So he's just like, just do it. And so I did that, did well. George Slessman, who was the CEO at IO Data Centers, I was his chief of staff, and the CIO role had been vacated. And so he said, you should be CIO. And I was like, I'll be interim CIO. And he said, well, here's the thing. You can be CIO by proxy, or you can take the job and get the money. So either way, you're going to be a CIO. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And so it's important for somebody to kind of see something in myself that I couldn't. So
That's advocacy.
yeah, that's advocacy and allyship, really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And it's important that you find those for yourself, male or woman, black or white. You have to go search these people. Sometimes they'll happen upon your lap, which is amazing when you have bosses and leaders that are thinking about your best interests, saying, hey, I have a friend that has the perfect job for you. But sometimes you have to search them out yourselves and make sure that no matter where you are in your career, that you have those mentors, the people that have gone before you, to help you have those conversations of, all your answers are wrong. You have to have that honest feedback. And if you don't surround yourself with people like that, this room has a lot of mine, I'll confess, then you will stunt yourself. So continue to look for your mentors as you grow in your career, and trust those allies and advocates that are looking for your best interests. And if you hear somebody who would be a great ally or advocate, invite them to help. I run our women's ERG for my company for Phoenix, and I'm constantly looking for those male allies to help the women, to help us grow our next generation of leaders.
And it's not just men. It can be any of us that can be allies.
The only thing I would add, everything that my fellow panelists have said here is true, and it really is up to each of us to make the most out of that mentoring relationship. And I have benefited tremendously in my career. One of the folks in my company that I approached asked them to be my mentor. He actually put me on a very visible program because he liked that I approached them saying, hey, I liked how you presented yourself. Would you be my mentor? And because of that, I got put into a really high visibility program, which opened all sorts of doors. And the way I like to give back, I have done a lot of mentoring program, Women in Technology group in my organization, PMI mentoring chapters, organizing and coordinating the program, and really seek your ally and make the best use, and then try to give back. I really take pride in a lot of people that I have worked with and helped mentor who are really in very, very good position, having realized their potential. And we kind of have that sounding board for each other, and you continue to network and grow together.
Thank you. I'm going to move a little bit off of the softer ones. I'm going to go to a harder question. Not that it's more difficult. You'll all know the answer. How do you stay abreast of the latest technology trends and innovation, including your upskilling that you need to do? So the trends that happen in our field and upskilling for ourselves and our workforce?
I do. You have to be a continuous learner. You have to be curious. You have to be reading what's in the news, and you have to be talking to your teams. I'm a boss. I manage people. My son tells me this all the time. Don't manage me, Mom. But I have amazing security researchers, intelligence, and security operations members that are dealing with the day-to-day, what's happening in our field. You have to talk to people, you have to read, you have to research, and be curious.
Others?
So I'm a geek, and so I like to do like Microsoft host labs, Google host labs. I've loaded GPT and tried to learn all the prompts, and I, create little assignments for myself. But I try to remain hands-on, because if I do, then I know the types of questions to ask better, rather than under something theoretically. I've actually touched it, so that's really important to me.
Yeah, I would say a combination of technology. Being in IT, I like to attend webinars on topics of interest. I like to make notes of things that strike me as curious. It may not be something that I'm working on day in, day out, but because I like it, I would try to make a note of it, remember it. Very recently, I actually went ahead and downloaded LinkedIn Learning because it serves bite-sized learning, very easy to, digest and retain. And then when the situation calls for, I'll call upon the subject matter experts to help me make the right decision. And one of the recent examples, I was actually evaluating a platform for a particular use case I had. The vendor came up with a Gen AI product of their own, but it's additional cost. And I wanted to make a decision, is it really worth for me to go and spend that money to buy a separate SKU for Gen AI capability, or is there something else within an organization that will help us achieve the similar results without having to invest greatly? And I think most of you have been here throughout the day and you have heard kind of recurring theme. And by leaning into those subject matter experts, I was able to make the right decision on the technology. So I would say, webinars, talk to your vendors, read newsletters, articles, but also be very kind and realistic. Because you're not going to become subject matter expert in everything. If you are a technology strategy leader like myself, as opposed to somebody who is expected to troubleshoot a network connectivity issue or something else, you need different depth of knowledge. So be kind and be realistic and never stop learning.
I'll just add a couple of things. I spend my first hour of my morning reading. You've got Wired, you've got Infotech, you've got CIO. There's lots of resources out there. I'm also accredited to teach 3 certifications, so I have to, stay up on what risk compliance and governance is going on in that world. But then I also, when I speak to other individuals, I ask them, what do you read to stay up on it? And then I add it to my list, and then my morning gets a little bit longer. But the first hour of my morning is blocked off so that I can, consume some of the information that's out there.
Thank you. So she's not reading your emails in the morning.
And she's right. I hate email.
Okay. So here's one that some of us experience, and some of the women think it's unique because we all are unique, right? But it's probably unique to any of us. But what is your advice to someone in the workplace challenges in our pursuit of technology careers? What is your advice to somebody to overcome some of the barriers, or what you might see a barrier to be? And if it's women or a minority, go for that.
So I'm Black, I'm a woman, and, I'm of a certain age, so I have 3 strikes.
Age.
One thing you have to understand is what's within you, no one can put down, all right? You know what you're capable of, you know what you want to do, you know where you want to go. So don't allow anyone to tell you you cannot achieve what your expectation is. You have to be very diligent, of course, and that's, important to understand. It lies within you, but it's also your responsibility to get it done. It's not your mentor, it's not your advocate, it's not your boss. They will usually open the door, but you have to walk through and visit the different sites you want to attend. And that's one of the things that we try to teach our college graduates or soon-to-be graduates about interviews, understanding what the expectation is. And if you don't have that, it doesn't mean that you should not apply for the job you want, because then you can get some feedback on what you need to do to get your foot through that door.
And a lot of women, specifically women, but not just women, don't advocate enough for yourself at that level that Gail just described, where you go, oh, that's too technical, I can't do that. Or like, Charisse just talked about too, that you think you can't do things, but you can. Thank you.
Find the right place for you. One of the things I've learned, the first few years I was at Accenture, I used to tell all my friends, because I came from the city of Phoenix, that I had drank rainbow-colored Kool-Aid. I'll still tell you it's a great place to work, but find the place for you. Find the place where they're valuing your, you have Gallup success factors, your top characteristics of you. Are they honoring you, or are you being told you talk too much? When you interview, make sure that you're asking those pointed questions to make sure that this is an environment where you can bring your whole self to work. We have a lot of different people in this room today that are going to be presenting themselves in a lot of different ways. Are you able to be true to yourself, true to your work style? Are you being asked to do the things that you can learn, continues to learn, and be successful? If not, go somewhere else.
One door closes, another door opens.
Another door opens. In your company, and a lot of us in this room have worked in the government sector, you do not want to get rid of your government pensions. Look for where you can make a difference. It may not be in IT. One of the things, I have a colleague that's in the room that was a deputy CIO. Well, deputy CIOs in the city of Phoenix, there's like 10 of them. And they don't just work for IT. They work for the police department, the fire department, public works. Maybe the department's the issue. Maybe it's the supervisor. Advocate for yourself and figure out where you belong. I have truly been blessed in my career, where I have been fortunate in my situation that I have never been limited. I don't have those stories. My sisters do. And it's not because of something that I did or did not do, or something they did or did not do. But I would say look for your opportunities and put yourself there.
I think one of the biggest barriers is not being able to interpret what failure means. So a lot of people think that when something goes wrong, it's like, oh, I failed, I should have done something better. But rather than like internalizing that, it's always something to learn. And it's not for you to fall on your sword. And sometimes you have to, but I think when you're more matter of fact about what things are, and you can go back and you can do a retrospective, I think that is more productive in terms of barriers, because you want to approach things from a as far as an analytical perspective. And that's kind of been my approach. And I think it's done me more good because I look at things as they are, and I can find ways to turn things on its head so that it's not necessarily failure, it's a learning opportunity. And I think when we burden ourselves with thinking that we have failed, then it kind of hampers our ability to look past it and to think, well, how can I do it better?
I'll just finish off by saying what Charisse was saying, kind of tagging on to this. Having a growth mindset, right? That we all are born with certain quality, but there's just so much more that we can do to learn. So having that growth mindset, not letting failure upset your, desire or fire to move forward, being your own advocate, doing the right thing, but also making sure that others know that you did the right thing. So don't be too humble. Don't be too afraid to take credit for your work. There have been times where I have reflected on how I acted in certain instances and wish that I had done it better. So don't be afraid to take credit for the work that you have done.
Thank you. I'm going to go to a bigger question now, just to make sure we get to it, but don't worry, we're not going to run over. So what is the heavy hitter that you see in creating a successful tech career? A heavy hitter, not multiples. What do you see as the big one for being successful in a tech career?
Having a plan.
Having a plan?
Having a plan. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Having a plan.
I think it's rolling with the punches, because I started off in hospitality, then I was in data center, and then I ended up in government. I didn't think I wanted to stay in government, and now I'm consulting for a government agency. It's just, you just roll with it.
I would say you are your business. have a business plan for yourself, decide where you want to go and work and execute on your plan.
And if you don't know where you want to go, try a couple of different areas. There's a lot out there, and you might just find your niche. My niche is being analytical and being able to read a regulation or law and regurgitating it that it supports whatever company I'm working for. So move around and find, your passion that way if you don't have that plan.
How many of you have a plan?
My plan is to retire on the beach.
That's the plan, man, but you got to get there. Maybe you got to have money. Money and time. Okay, so what is your most significant advice on how you might advise people to create an inclusive workplace, whether they're the manager or you're the individual, or whether you're trying to work in an environment that might not be that?
Invite people to participate.
Invite people to participate.
Invite people to participate. As in folks that you feel need to be included and stakeholders and allies. As in people that might be disenfranchised, to have them as part of your team. As in the next generation, those recent college graduates, to invite them to participate on your project. Right now, we have a lot of people that are in silos. We have a lot of people that have not gathered together since COVID. This has been a common conversation I've been in today. Invite people to come.
I want to add to that because we have different cultures in different countries where we work, where we may interact with other countries and cultures, not just in our physical space. And they might not be speaking up because their culture is not to do that. And you might not even be hearing it if you aren't doing what Tina just said. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
I love quotes. I love to collect quotes.
Quotes or goats?
I wish
She
it was
said
quotes.
goats.
So this I came across, and I'm sure you have seen many different flavors of it. So diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a choice, and belonging is a feeling. And why do I start with that? I think as a technologist, a technology leader, women in technology, any sort of leader, I think being aware that diversity exists, and also you have heard it today many times, being aware that we all have unconscious bias. Those are really, in my mind, the beginning of being an inclusive leader. Right. So, and I have always worked in a global multinational organization, and I have had direct reports, and I have had bosses that I have never met. So we have had to make extra effort to be inclusive. And generally the way I go about it is I get to know them as people. And even though we are virtual most of the time, we try to have events like virtual coffee break where you don't talk about work. You really talk about what's going on in your life, what sports do you like, what's going on with your children. And I think that really helps us foster that bond and the trust then I can, as a leader, or somebody else as my leader, can really help me be more successful because they know more about me. So that's just like one of the examples that I have used to create a more inclusive environment. Other, I would say, is encouraging people to open up more. So I would open my staff meeting with what I like to call good news story. What happened over past week that you would want to share, whether it's work related, a project went live, great success, or something, you ran half marathon, right? So I think kind of just those little things promote that sense of belonging and helps us create a more productive environment, I would say.
So I would say that one of the things that I think about diversity and inclusion, I think removing that bias around you have to have a bachelor's degree to be successful. I think that's one of the biases that, and when we're talking about inclusion, it's like, does it make a difference if you have a BS in zoology in order to get a job as a software developer? No. And so being an advocate for expanding the pool of talent, I think is something that as leaders, it's incumbent on us to do that. One of my executive assistant worked for me, and she was brilliant with IT and with budgets. So managing the budget. I fought for her to get an exempt position because she had so much talent. And it wasn't the fact that she didn't have a degree. And I had to talk people through that. It's like, look at the practical experience, look at the hands-on experience, and let's balance that around the value of having a degree. And the internet has democratized education in a way that it hasn't. And so in order to be a more inclusive and diverse organization, I think that we need to do a better job of recognizing that and minimizing that barrier.
I agree with everything everyone has said, but one thing I want to add is be the person who brings that other person in who remains the outsider, because there's always one at work. And if you're not willing to step up and help that person come into your group, then they will always be the outsider. So when you see one, make sure you take action to make them part of the group.
Can I add a question just briefly to that? When you said bring that person forward, not just you or anybody, what if you're that person that's the person that's left out? How can, if you're that person, because most of us right here are extroverts, but we have a lot of introverts in our field, more than extroverts.
Yeah, I would have to say, then there are those that have the courage to step up and want to become part of the group. But you always have that chance of being a undercover introvert.
Undercover.
As I am.
She is not undercover.
No, well, I'm not undercover with the people that I know. There's a lot of people that I've known here for over 20 years. This is a very small community, especially for women. So we have been together, a while. But there are other organizations where I've become the outsider. And being an introvert, I'm happy to be the outsider because I feel like I'm Sheldon Cooper. I don't like people. I love dogs.
No one like that in here, right?
But it's part of your courage to stand up and not be the outsider.
But this is where your network comes in. You may feel like you're the outsider and you want to be part of that team, that group. Use your mentors, use your network, use your allies, use your advocates, and ask, what is it I need to do? Who can you introduce me to so that I could then be part of and invited to or talk to that team? We probably, in this room, we probably all know one another through a level of separation of maybe one or two. So I may have to ask, I'm going to pick on you, Mike. Mike, hey, I need to talk to so-and-so at American Express. Great. Mike will maybe make the introduction. And if he doesn't know somebody, he might know somebody who knows somebody. So use your network and connect. And once you're connected, you're no longer outside.
So I'm going to say something and you're not going to believe me. I am an extreme introvert, and managing people and dealing with people every day is extremely exhausting for me. And so I am challenged actually with networking because when I'm outside of like where I'm safe, I do tend to retreat into myself. And so networking has always been kind of interesting for me because I don't go to a lot of events and socialize. It's just kind of hard for me. So it's easy for me to kind of recognize people that are introverts, and I can sympathize with them and give them some tips on how to draw it out because I have to be an extrovert at work. And so I'm sympathetic to them and I try to give them a little extra attention.
Thank you. We have a lot of introverts in our field, lots and lots.
Yeah, I would just add, I think I agree with everything that Gail, Tina, and Sharish have said so far. And, that's why each of us have a bigger responsibility. Introverts are introverts, right? And it's kind of against their grain to say, hey, here I am, listen to me, right? And if you're aware of your biases, if you're aware of how we react, you can actually draw those people in. Hey, what do you think? As you are having a team meeting, making sure that everybody's voice is heard, they are given a chance to speak, and their opinion is valued. As you are having brainstorming session, don't be judgmental. Don't say, oh, this is a great idea, because by doing that, you are implying that, well, other person's idea wasn't that great. So really, each of us really have a responsibility to draw that person in, because introverts bring so much talent, right? That if we as leaders don't recognize and make that extra effort, we are really not leveraging full potential of our people.
I will say one thing. One of the things that I've always done is I've had an open door policy, and people really don't think that when I say it's an open door policy, no, it's an open door policy. And so it gives a lot of people an opportunity to maybe ask a question or share an idea where they don't really feel like they'd be able to otherwise. And so I think giving people a space where they can approach you directly, I think that helps people feel more part of an organization, because if the leader will make you feel included, then that cascades.
Thank you. I'm going to go to another one. I am going to give the audience a chance to give a couple questions too, but not quite yet. But if you don't have any, don't worry. I have more. What key piece of advice, one, would you offer to aspiring technology leaders?
Well, I was at the Brophy Career Fair yesterday, so I got to talk to a lot of aspiring young men yesterday. I got kind of overwhelmed. I told them that cybersecurity is puzzle solving. Find your passion, whether it's in governance and legal, where you're trying to interpret international laws like what Gail does, or whether it's technical and trying to figure out the cat and mouse game of the bad guy. Find your passion.
Passion. Next.
I think the advice I give most of the students that I work with and those who ask my advice is there's never anything that you cannot achieve. It might not be the direct line you thought you were going to go down, but you will get to the end. And if that's what you want to do, if you aspire to be a CISO or a CIO, you have to understand that technical ability will only take you so far. There's other skills that you have to build, specifically soft skills and leadership skills. And I'm loving my individual contributor role where I don't have to mentor people or, write those biannual and annual reviews. They can be taxing, right? Because you want to be not sympathetic, but you do want to be nice about how you give feedback, especially if it's a underperformer. So, but I would just say, if that is your goal, there are certain technical skills you will need, but the majority of your skills will come from, being business savvy, understanding the company's strategic goals, their financial goals, their goals of revenue, as well as design research. There's so much more than just the technical knowledge that you'll require to aspire to a higher level of technology leadership.
One thing I would say predominantly with women is fight the urge to suffer from imposter syndrome. I was a keynote at a hackathon at U of A about 4 years ago, and I was working with this group of brilliant women, mechanical, electrical, computer engineers, and they had these amazing assignments that they had done. And so after the keynote, I had a bunch of them come up to me, and it was, so how did you get to the point where you felt like you were really smart? And my dad tells me that I shouldn't be an engineer and when I'm going to get married. And I'm like,
Whoa.
you know, and I was like, I said, so how many people do you think can come and build this system with the specifications that you've built it, right? So it's like, what are we talking about here? So I think that the whole imposter syndrome and thinking like maybe you just fell into something, not because you earned it, but because, and if people knew who you were, they wouldn't think so highly of you. Cut it out. And the other thing is decide if you want to be like a technical leader or like a leader of people, because it's two totally different sets of attributes that you need to have. And I think people need to be realistic about that, particularly when they think that, they're a technical leader and they think they want to make the leap to like a VP or a CIO. The skills are different, so just be realistic about that and then fill in the gaps if that's what you aspire to.
And it's okay if you move to something you aspire to and it doesn't work, to move somewhere else.
Never stop learning, right? Be realistic, network, and don't be afraid to try. Guest speaker from Microsoft come and speak to us for International Women's Day. Kate Maxwell, you can look her up. And one of the things that she talked about when she was talking about imposter syndrome, she said, I don't remember who she was quoting, but they said that we raise our girls to be perfect and boys to be brave. So a lot of pressure that women put on themselves is because of that inherent, expectation that everything that you do has to be perfect. It doesn't, right? So that's just having that realistic expectation of ourselves is really key in growing your career.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for a couple audience questions right now, not editorializing questions. So, does anybody have a question for the panel? Wow.
Wow, are we that into
Come on.
We imparted such sage knowledge.
Okay, I'm going to take this gentleman here and then the gentleman in the blue shirt and somebody had here. You.
So you guys talked about honing your technical acumen and the difference here of leadership versus the technical piece. How did you personally, your careers, learn those soft skills to become leaders?
Because I hated coding.
I was commissioned in the Air Force.
Did you all hear the question? How did you learn those soft skills to get good at them? And Gail?
I do a lot of self-training, leadership training. In school, I did my bachelor's as networking and telecommunications, but I did my master's in business administration. And the reason why I chose the ASU master's program, the executive master's program, was because those were the types of classes that were given in that particular curriculum. And I needed to understand how to talk to business and influence people rather than trying to get a program to work for me. So it's a matter of, you can do it by self-education. You can also look at your own company. I know my company, they do a lot of offerings of different leadership programs, understanding yourself and other people that you work with you and the style of communication that helps you to communicate with others. It's just like learning technical skills. You have to, take the training, practice, and pivot when you need to.
So I had a 4-year scholarship in mathematics from the United States Air Force. And when I got out and was in the National Guard working for Wachovia Bank, I didn't think I had anything special until our CTO decided he wanted to create a training program for frontline managers. He was discovering he was losing tech talent because people had been promoted beyond their skills in leadership. And so I was part of a team that was asked to put together a program to train those frontline managers on basic things like coaching and talking, not telling. Those soft skills that we take for granted for those good managers, we desperately needed them within our frontline leadership so that we could maintain the IT at the bank. So it was at that point I realized I had something that I had picked up along the way. And then it's important as you grow that you share this with the next generation so that the future Gails and Tinas can be successful.
So for me, it was trial by fire. So I had an analyst that worked for me once upon a time. His name was Todd Schrader. And because I'm very comfortable with like direct conversation, I said something to him and he was like, so there's no other way that you could have said that a little better. And I was like, no, and absolutely not. Well, he was comfortable enough with me, and that's part of my style. I mean, you can be honest. And he said, that sounded a little terse. And I said, I think that you might be right about that. And then I realized that just because like I'm okay with certain types of communication that not everybody is. The other thing is, I started in property support. I started in IT support. And what I try to do is as I progress through my career, I never forget what it's like to be someone, you know what I mean? Somebody, I mean, I don't want to say at a lower level or anything like that, but I know what it's like to be an analyst, to be a support person. And so I try to keep myself grounded by reminding myself what it used to be like in those particular roles. And then finally, I've had bad managers, and my thing is, I don't want to do that because I remember how that made me feel. And so I try to be very deliberate about that. But a lot of mine has been trial by fire.
I would say kind of similar to Sirish, your experience. I started my career in tech support, and that has been by far the most exciting job I have ever had. I still remember people will be stuck in a meeting room, and as I would walk into the conference room, they said, okay, my tech support person is here, my problems will be solved now, right? So that was the best job ever I had. And how I realized about the soft skills or leadership skills, I think it happened over a course of time, gradually. It's not like I even envisioned that this is where I wanted to be. And in those days, we were all required to be undergoing Six Sigma Green Belt certification. And again, speaking of mentors and coaches, the person who was training us in Green Belt Six Sigma methodology, she basically recommended to my boss to send me to Black Belt training. And as a Black Belt, you have to mentor and coach many Green Belt teams, certify them. And it's like just one example. And switching career to project program management, I think it's over the course of time that I developed those skill sets leading up to becoming people manager. And I slowly started to realize that I really liked working with people and helping them develop, achieve their full potential. And people, when they have done that for me, I have had deep appreciation for that. So I'm still work in progress, but that's kind of how it happened.
I'm going to take the gentleman back in the blue shirt, but give me 1 second, because here we're hearing that you own your career. You need to ask for help if you need it. You can affect the outcome of yourself when you work with people in diversity or whatever it is, as much as helping other people help make that change too. So, and you need a plan and you need goals. So let's go to this gentleman back in the blue shirt. And then I don't know that we're going to have time to get to the other one.
So this is more of a reflective, introspective question as far as looking back. What would you have told your younger self starting off as far as realize what advice you gave yourself?
Marry a rich husband.
This is wrong. Okay, so what advice would you give your younger self?
I can't take her anywhere.
And I haven't even had a drink.
I know, we're sober. I had a nickname when I was in the Air Force. It was Benign Dictator. I got that when I was in my 20s. I was a certified PMP when I was about 25. And I planned the communications for Operation Rocky Freedom when I was in my late 20s. I was a benign dictator. So I would tell myself, if I were to go back and talk to that 20-year-old, chill out. It's okay for other people to have other ideas and other ways of doing things. If Agile had been invented in the 90s, it would have been a good thing, because it is a team sport. Chill out.
Do ladies have something to add?
If I could go back, I would say sometimes it's them and it's not you. I think that if you're at a job and it just doesn't work out, it's not always because you failed or it's something. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that's okay. That's okay. I think I would probably tell myself, you know what? Is it going to matter in 2 hours? Too, sometimes we get so wrapped up in what's going on in the moment. And it's like, if you just walk away, is this really going to matter? And a lot of times it's not going to. And I think the other thing I would tell myself was, I would have told myself to keep my hair natural and wear it the way I wanted to wear it. Because I will tell you, when I started looking for a job, when I started interviewing for a job in 2019, I was going through this thing. They had to pass a Crown Act, which actually passed a law to make it illegal to discriminate against somebody based on the way they wear their hair. Why they needed it? You answer that for yourself. But I know that when I was going through, I wanted to find some place where I felt like I could be me. And me was not straightening my hair out anymore. I wanted to wear my hair the way that I did. And so what I would tell myself is, go somewhere where you feel like you can be you. And I interviewed at places, and if I got the vibe that it wasn't going to work out, the answer wasn't go change your hair so you'll feel more comfortable. That's not the place for you.
And the last thing I'll say is, I really would tell myself to be who I am. For so long, I tried to be something that was expected by others, and that wasted a lot of time for me. But once I decided I'm good enough the way I am, that kind of opened a lot of doors for me. And while I am a very straightforward communicator, and I will tell you what's on my mind, and sometimes, as Cherise said, it can sound terse, I always start off with, just remember, this is not about you, this is about the business. So just be who you are.
Yeah, I would wrap up by saying, don't let others define you, right? Know your worth, right?
I heard that somewhere.
And don't let imposter syndrome take over, That's it.
By the way, I've heard that men have imposter syndrome too.
Yes.
Some of them have told me.
Yes, so they do.
Somebody must have.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
So
One man.
we're not going to take any more questions. We're going to conclude on time so the next session can come in time. But we want to thank you for joining us here today. And thanks the panelists. Thank you all.